In 2025, there are many foldable phones that are good, but which one should you buy? In this video, I'm going to be comparing the Z Fold 6, the Oppo Find N5, and the Honor Magic V3 so that you can get a better idea of which one is best for you. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you do end up enjoying the video. A lot more content on the way, especially when it comes to foldable phones and just using them. That is my specialty, so make sure you subscribe. We're going to cover everything in this video, so make sure you watch the whole video. But for now, let's start with the basics. Alright, so now we're going to compare the hardware of all these devices, the weight, design, and the hinges. So first, we have the Z Fold 6. Obviously, this is the triple camera layout. You can see the flash here. And it's very minimalistic, to be honest. It doesn't come out of the body that much. But this is the thickest phone out of all these phones. And then it has the slimmer outer display. And, you know, some people might say it's too small, it's too hard to type on. For me personally, I don't have any issues typing on this display. And honestly, it really is nice with one-hand usability and just maneuvering the device overall. Very easy to use, in my opinion. So I really like the small form factor on the outside, but then you have a big tablet on the inside that you can use for more serious things. This is how the Z Fold 6 compares to an iPhone mini. And to be honest, it's about the same width. Actually, the Z Fold 6 might even be a little bit wider, but then it has so much more real estate at the top. So I like the form factor. I feel like the buttons are pretty good. Don't have any issues with the way that things are laid out. And then in terms of weight, Z Fold 6 is at 240 grams. So now the Honor Magic V3 weighing in at 235 grams on my scale. It does have a TPU screen protector, which probably adds like 2 or 3 grams, I don't know. It is a little bit wider than the Z Fold 6. And it is more like a normal smartphone size. So if I bring in this smartphone, this is the size of a Pro Max or Ultra size phone, you know, just a bigger phone. This is what the Honor Magic V3 looks like beside it. And then here is the Z Fold 6. So definitely different form factors, and, you know, different people might like them for different reasons. The V3 is really slim. However, it does have a big protruding camera bump. So if we look at side by side with the Z Fold 6, the V3 is way slimmer. But the camera bump, if we were measuring the camera bump included in its measurement, then it's about the same thickness as the Z Fold 3 minus the Z Fold 3's camera. Why am I saying 3? So yeah, this is a really slim phone because you're not really holding or touching the camera bump that much, really. So this is what you're interacting with. So it is definitely a lot thinner than the Fold 6. And personally, I think this also comes down to, you know, preference. Like some people might like a slimmer device. Some people might like something that you can grab onto and hold onto. This is easier to just grip, you know, but the V3 is going to be, I think, more comfortable long term, especially with the rounded edges. Slimness and bigger screen makes it for a good one-hand usage experience. It's not as, in my opinion, not as good as the Z Fold 6 when it comes to one-hand usage. But the fact that it's also not as tall as a normal phone, it keeps it within reach of still being pretty good in one hand, to be honest, combined with the slimness and the weight. So definitely an enjoyable form factor for sure. Then you have the Find N5. So this is the one that I guess took the slimness to another level. But personally, I think the V3 is still slimmer than this device. From my eyes, looks like the V3 is definitely slimmer. But as you can see, Find N5 is taller than the V3. And you can see the Fold 6 is low-key the smallest one out of the bunch, but it is the thickest one. In terms of the exterior displays, this is how they stack up against each other. The Find N5 is going to be taller, but it has this huge awkward bezels on the left side that personally I don't like. The Pixel 9 Pro Fold is worse. It's the same but worse. And this was something that I even called out with the OnePlus Open 3, and it's still here, just a little bit slimmer. Compare these two to a normal phone screen. This is what it looks like. The Oppo Find N5 is literally right there. It's just slimmer than a regular phone screen, which makes it good for one-hand usage, or better for one-hand usage. Then you have the Z Fold 6 beside them. So it's definitely interesting. Definitely different form factors for different people. I like that we have different things, but it looks like Samsung is going to be going to something like these phones with their new phone. So it should be interesting to see how that turns out. In terms of the weights, the Find N5 is around 230 grams. So actually weighing in lighter than the V3, but it might be because of the screen protector. I'm not sure. So yeah, after searching on Google, it definitely is because of the screen protector. This particular V3, the glass model with the glass back, weighs around 230 grams, and then this weighs around 229 grams. So like 1 gram lighter But then this has the screen protector on, which is giving it like 4 grams, I guess, essentially. If you get the vegan leather AbrahamRoberts V3, then it will weigh around 226 grams, which is kind of wild for a foldable phone. But yeah, both of them very slim, very light, and they appeal to a lot of different people compared to what the Fold 6 is doing. Personally, I like this design better. I feel like it just looks more clean and more minimalistic. Just something about it, the boxy design, it just looks tough to me. But let me know in the comments which one you like the best in terms of the look and the design. So now let's get into the hinge. So the hinge is an essential part of the foldable phone, and you know how it works, how it allows you to prop it up and use it in different ways. Flex mode is something that foldable phones have been doing for years. Samsung kind of started it, and yeah. So Samsung's hinge is like A+, like S tier hinge. It allows you to use the phone in so many different ways. The hinge stays open, like as you can see, it's still open. It stays open at so many different increments, and finally it's fully open. Whereas the other phones, they are not that tight at different angles. Like as you can see, the V3 wants to just close until you pull it past 90 degrees, and even then it's still kind of easy to just flop closed. And then if you bring it up, it's all right here. I feel like it'll be fine. And if you bring it back, then eventually it will just snap open. So you kind of have to like do it from right here. But even then, over time, the V3 is just gonna slowly open with time. So in terms of like using it propped up like that, it's decent. It's definitely gonna work, but you still have that risk of it just opening. Whereas the Z Fold 6, it's just gonna stay open in flex mode. It's gonna work like this very easily. So if I'm taking videos and I have the camera propped up, built-in tripod with the hinge, this is the most reliable one out of all these phones. The Oppo Find N5 hinge is basically like the OnePlus Opens hinge, in the sense that, yeah, you have flex mode, but it's very floppy. Like from here, it wants to just go down. And over time, in my experience, using this in flex mode, it's just gonna eventually flop. The AbrahamRoberts is pretty close to that, but I feel like it's a little bit more sturdy and tight when it comes to sitting the hinge at different positions, different angles. So yeah, I mean, that's the story with the hinges. They are thin on these two devices, but the Z Fold 6's hinge is just, it's magic in terms of like staying at any position. Samsung definitely figured it out a couple years ago. So now in terms of ergonomics, if you're playing a game and holding these phones in landscape mode, the V3 is not going to be bad at all. It's definitely not going to be bad at all with how slim it is on the outside screen. Then if you're playing like this, you're not going to touch the camera bump at all. But if you rotate the phone the way that the speakers are, you're going to basically destroy the sound. And the speakers are not that good on this phone anyways compared to the Z Fold 6. And yeah, it's just not going to be that good of an experience with the speakers. So if you want to fix that, you got to rotate it, and then you have the camera bump on your hand. And it's honestly not the best experience, but the camera bump is not like incredibly huge on this phone in terms of the ergonomics, so it works fine. Z Fold 6, minimalistic camera bump, so if you use it like this, it's going to be fine. However, this is the smallest screen, so if you're playing a game on the outer display, you might not find it comfortable. Personally, I don't really have any issues if I'm playing on the outside screen. I feel like it's big enough, but yeah, a lot of people might have issues with it doing different things on the outer display because of how small it is, but the ergonomics are fine. It is boxy, a little bit sharper at the corners, especially these corners right here, than the other two. So that is also something to think about. With foldable phones, you're probably going to be on the inside anyways, and I feel like the ergonomics, no matter which way you use this phone, are going to be good. And the speakers, they will get muffled because it only has speakers on one side, top and bottom, and so if you're playing like this, they will get muffled a bit, but they are better than these two phone speakers. Maybe because the device is thicker, but the speakers are definitely a lot better, and they come out a lot better when you're using it like this in landscape. And if you switch to the other side, you have like no issue because this camera bump is nothing compared to the other two. Then the Oppo Find N5, this is going to be like basically a normal smartphone, to be honest. Ergonomics are pretty good. Like these corners are pretty sharp, but they're not as sharp as the Z Fold 6's hinge corners. And then around the edges are decent. But then you have that camera bump. The camera bump on this phone is not going to be that much of a problem in terms of ergonomics, but it's still there, still annoying to touch the camera, still annoying to kind of hold around it. And it might make your hand cramp a little bit if you're playing for a long time. Then if you open it up, again, the same issue as the AbrahamRoberts. Either you touch the camera and hold it, or you muffle the speakers. And the speakers on this phone are not that good. The ergonomics will vary depending on how you use the phone. But I feel like all of them are pass, in my opinion, and they're good in no matter which orientation you use them. I think they're good enough. But yeah, just looking at the thinness again, you can see how thick the Z Fold 6 is compared to these devices. But honestly, not a problem to me. I feel like foldable phones should stay at this thickness and just try to lower the weight, but get better performance, better thermals, and better cameras. I don't mind the thickness of the Z Fold 6, but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I know many people are going to have a different opinion and different thoughts on that topic. And then looking at the buttons, on the Honor Magic V3, you have buttons on 2 separate sides. So if you open up the phone, then you're going to have your power button here and your volume button here. I think that's pretty decent. Honestly, I don't mind the buttons being on 2 separate sides because then you never make a mistake. But then the Z Fold 6 and the Oppo Find 5 have the button on the same side. The Oppo Find 5 also has a alert slider that is on the other side right here. And you can use it to switch the phone into silent mode, vibrate, or ring very quickly. Personally, when I had this phone and the OnePlus Open, I don't really use the slider, but it is kind of useful. If you just want to quickly go into silent mode, you can do that real quick. But you also have the option on all of them to just flip your phone and you'll be in silent mode anyways. In terms of the internal camera, these two have the camera, cut out. The Honor Magic V3 is a little bit more, I guess, symmetrical in a sense. Like it's in the middle of this half of the screen. This is on the right side. Z Fold 6 is kind of symmetrical like the Honor Magic V3s, and it's under display, so you honestly don't really notice it. I mean, like you can notice it if you just look for it, but like when you're doing stuff and playing games, watching videos, it's gone. So in terms of like everyday usage, I prefer what the Z Fold 6 does with the under display camera. But in terms of the quality, I think the Honor Magic V3 has the better selfie camera quality on the inside. But if you're really trying to take selfies, these foldable phones all have the ability to do something like this. And that's use the back camera as your main camera, and then the external screen is the viewfinder. And then they all have the ability to make sure that there's no touch inputs on the inside screen so that you can hold your phone very easily and take videos, selfies, and whatever. So all 3 of these phones are really good for vlogging and versatility of the camera and using the external screen in that way. So yeah, if you're really taking selfies, personally, I don't think the selfie cameras being bad on any of them is a knock against them for real, because you have good selfie cameras on the outside, and then you also have the main cameras that you can use for selfies anyways. And then in terms of the screen sizes on the inside, the Oppo Find 5 is going to be the one with the biggest screen. But if we go to the same website, this is what they all look like in terms of the screen size, how they compare. So Oppo Find 5, Z Fold 6. I mean, the Oppo Find 5 is bigger, but like you can see that everything kind of lines up anyways. And if I get rid of the taskbar on the Z Fold 6, the Z Fold 6 actually shows a little bit more content because of how tall the aspect ratio is. If you look at the bottom of this gold phone right here, you can see a little bit more of the phone. Like even the port is missing on the Oppo Find 5. The Find 5 is going to show a little bit more information because it's taller than the V3 on the inside screen. But yeah, because of this form factor of the Z Fold 6, you just see a little bit more on the screen. And that even applies to the outer display, despite what people think, like, oh, it's too small, you don't see anything, whatever, it's cramped. But look at this, you can see more on the outer display in terms of information. Like this is the top of the screen on both of them, but you can see this is where the Oppo Find 5 cuts off. The tall aspect ratio of the Z Fold 6 in your vertical is pretty good. And then when you rotate the landscape on all of them, this is what it looks like. The Honor Magic V3 is going to be the tallest one, with the Oppo Find 5 being the second tallest. And you can see a little bit more of this phone in landscape on the Honor Magic V3, whereas the Z Fold 6 is the shortest in landscape. So it trade back and forth. I feel like these differences are very negligible because you're not going to be using the phone and being like, oh, I can't see, this many pixels at the bottom of the screen. For all of them, I think people will be more than happy with them. And I mean, this is a huge screen, but like, how does it compare in multitasking? In landscape, this is what multitasking looks like on all of them. So Z Fold 6 on the left side, Honor Magic V3 on the right side. And then we got the Oppo Find 5. And then Oppo Find 5 versus the Honor Magic V3. I mean, it's pretty good on all of them, but obviously these screens are going to be bigger than the Z Fold 6. In vertical, the same story really. This is where I think the Oppo Find 5's screen will shine when they're doing side-by-side split screen. And then even with your open canvas, I think this big screen is really nice for that kind of stuff. So although I think Samsung has the most flexible software when it comes to multitasking, a bigger screen would be nice. In terms of the cameras, I'm not going to talk about the specs. We will just see how they compare in the real world. So make sure you subscribe so that you catch that video. So in terms of always on displays, the Z Fold 6 and the Honor Magic V3 have full screen always on displays. But one thing I love about the Honor Magic V3's always on display is that it shows you full notifications, just like on iPhones. The Samsung always on display, even though it shows the wallpaper, it does not give you that. So that is something I appreciate here. In terms of customization though, on the Samsung, you can have widgets, a few different Samsung apps that you can put widgets for. So battery, calendar, things like that. And like they're very small. They are kind of useful. So the ones that I use mainly are the health app. So you can see your health stats throughout the day. And then also reminders, calendar, and battery. So I alternate between all those. And then on the Honor Magic V3, you don't really have options for widgets on the lock screen and the always on display. You do have different kinds of customization. So you have some presets here. Then you have a bunch of wallpapers you can choose from, colors, etc. You can also go to their store if you want to buy more themes and stuff like that. In terms of the style of the clock, you have a few different options, and you have colors that you can choose and etc. But other than that, there's not really much else to the lock screen and the always on display. Samsung, going back to it, you can change the font just like you could on the Honor Magic V3. You have color options, and then you also have the ability to put any color that you want. So that is really cool. You can change the saturation and stuff like that. And you have different styles. So there's many different styles on Samsung One UI for the lock screen clock. And then it also applies to the always on display, which I really like. You can even have your calendar built in. So that's super tough. And then you can show the weather information. You can show the date above the clock as well if you want. At the bottom, you have the ability to add many different shortcuts. So you can basically add any app to either side. Then you have like basic things like your mobile data, do not disturb, dark mode, flashlight, sound, etc, things like that. And then you can take it further in Good Lock, and you can actually put like full widgets on your lock screen. It's kind of hard to balance it with the way the notifications show up on your lock screen, but it is cool that you have that option, and you can move this around if you want as well and expand it to make it huge. Yeah, pretty good customization for your lock screen and your always on display for Samsung, but just the fact that you don't have full notifications is kind of unfortunate. On the Oppo Find N5, it's pretty simple as well. You don't have the ability to show your wallpaper on your always on display, but you do have some decent customization. So you have different animations or little like pictures that you can choose from. It's not a lot, but there are like 11 different ones that you can choose from, so that's pretty cool. You can also adjust the color of the text as well. And then you have classic and seamless, so just two different styles. Then obviously for all of them, you can choose whether they are on all the time, scheduled, or just like for new notifications, things like that. For on the Oppo Find N5, I don't believe you can tap and hold to enter into editing your lock screen. And then even if you go into settings and then you search lock screen, like it's just kind of in different places. So you have lock screen shortcuts, and you can change them to a few different options. And then home screen and lock screen, you have different settings here in this place. But in terms of the wallpapers and style, and then here you have another, I guess, place where you can kind of edit that. But yeah, so in terms of what you can do with your lock screen, you have some different clock styles. I think there's like 3. And you can also change the fonts and adjust the size, adjust the colors with a few different options. And then there are some things that you can add to your clock. So you have steps and weather. I'm pretty sure the steps only comes from the built-in pedometer that the phone has. So it's not going to use like your Samsung Health. It might work with Google Health, but I'm not sure. They have decent customization options for lock screen, but that's about it. It's pretty simple on the Honor Magic V3 and the Oppo Find N5. Z Fold 6 definitely has way more options. And I didn't even show the full capability of the Fold 6 because you have so many Good Lock things that you can do in terms of your lock screen. Going into the devices, they all have fingerprint sensors on the side, and they all work really fast. I wish all phones had the fingerprint sensor on the side, in my opinion. It's just very reliable, very easy to find, and it works. So all of them can do that. And now we have the home screen. So home screen mechanics, customization is going to be pretty similar across all of them. Samsung, you will have more options with something called Good Lock, but just by default, you have the ability to change the app size. You can turn off the app labels, the widget labels, cover screen mirroring. So this is a feature that only Samsung phones have, only Samsung Foldables have. You can have 2 separate layouts for your outer display and your inner display. So for example, this is the inner display's layout with the wallpaper and everything. And then if I close the phone, this is the outer display's layout, different wallpaper, different layout. So that is pretty cool that you can have 2 different setups for your 2 different screens because you're going to use them differently. All the other foldable phones cannot do that. You can change the home screen layout, so have an app drawer or just have home screen only. And then you have the grid, so you have 5x6, 4x6, and then the apps grid, so it's the app drawer, 5x6, 4x6 as well, and then folder grid. And all these things, these numbers can be altered to even higher, give you way more space in Good Lock, and I'll show you that very soon. And then you have more things like media page to the home screen, so like Google Discover or the Samsung News. And then you have show apps button on the home screen, so instead of swiping up for the app drawer, you can press a button. Just a few more things like app icons, so you can do numbers or dots. You can tap and hold the app to see the notifications as well, so that's pretty cool. So like if I go to Play Store, boom, that's actually a really cool feature. I'm going to turn that on my Samsung phones. And then rotate in landscape, swipe down for notification panel or swipe down for your app drawer. That's basically the main customizations. Samsung phones do not have an editing mode, but you can select multiple apps at a time, which makes moving your apps around on your home screens very easy. So I like that for sure. And then you can expand your folders now. That's just something that Android is adding in general. Your folders, you can change the color of the folders. So right now I have them as transparent, but you can change the background to whatever you want. In terms of the themes, you can go to the Galaxy Store for themes and apply them very easily. But for me, I go to Good Lock, and then I go to Theme Park, and then I have my own icon pack that I just apply very simply, and boom. This is the theme that I use. So default Samsung skin, default launcher. I use Samsung widgets mainly because they can be transparent like this. Some of them, the ones that can't have a blank background, you can make them a little bit more transparent like this. But for the ones that have the ability to turn off the background, I just do that. So it's really cool. The Honor Magic V3 home screen customization, it has an editing mode first and foremost, which is something I wish Samsung adds. So like I can move things around and still be in editing mode and change the size of the folders. I really like this ability too, to change the folders into different unique sizes. That is so cool. And then with these expanded folders, it works on the Samsung as well like this, but you can tap the app to quickly open them without opening the folder fully like this. But yeah, so you have editing mode, then you can change your wallpaper and your themes from here as well. You can also do like an auto customization mode where it kind of puts the apps into the folders by the themes of the apps or the category of the apps. So that is really cool. You can do by heading, by folder, and let's look at it. So games, entertainment, others. So that, I mean, that's pretty cool, to be honest. Auto folders, it kind of saves you time if you're satisfied with the way that it groups the apps. So that's not bad at all. And then you also have icon style, so you can adjust the size just like you could on Samsung. Then you can adjust the shape of it as well, so rounded corners or more squared off. Different icon styles. I believe it mainly applies to like the built-in system apps or like the first party apps for this phone. And you can also change the color. All of them can do this as well with Google. As you can see, not every app supports that, so I honestly don't really use that. You can edit your wallpaper here too, so you can blur the wallpaper. Choose a wallpaper from your folders, photos, or different wallpapers they have. And then obviously there's different themes. And then you can also change the effect of when you're scrolling through your home screen. So like this, you got squeeze, box, flip, page, and windmill. So yeah, you got a bunch of different options for that. Even something like that, change the animations. And I mean, that's basically it. It's pretty simple with the home screen editing, but I love that you have editing mode where you can keep doing stuff. So that's really nice. And then if you swipe to the left, you can edit your lock screen from here pretty easily, but we already showed you that. So, and then if we go to the Oppo Find N5, very similar. You can have custom folder sizes. I think Oppo does it a little bit more smoothly with the animation and like how it works. Then you can also select multiple apps just like on the other two and drag them to the bottom to either window. I like this shortcut. Create a folder if you select them all. You can do that with all the other ones too. Yeah, so at the bottom you have your wallpapers. You can change your icon. So I have my icon pack right here. And then you can change the size, the app name size, or you can just turn that off completely if you want. And then you have widgets. So on all of them you can add widgets. This is how it looks on that. It's called cards on the Honor Magic. But you have to go all the way down to classic widgets to find the third-party apps. And then on the Samsung, you got your widgets right there as well. And this is what it looks like. I feel like Samsung's is the cleanest and easiest to navigate. And it has all the apps categorized, and you can expand it to see what those specific apps have. then you can search for your widgets as well very easily. On these two, it's just like scrolling through a list. It's a little bit slower. If I search Google, it will kind of show me this, and then it will show me it's not exactly precise. On the Oppo Find N5, you literally just have to scroll through the list. So Samsung is definitely the cleanest when it comes to selecting the widget for sure. But yeah, on the Oppo Find N5, you can change the animation, so the way that it navigates through your home screen. It's a lot faster than the Automagics, but the Automagic does have more options. And then going back to the Automagic, in settings, you can do dual screen layout where it optimizes it better for the bigger screen, but it's still going to be the same apps and same layout, just going to be better spacing for the bigger screen. And then you can adjust the grid, so 4x6 or 5x6, so same grid as the Z Fold 6, even though the screen is bigger. Then you can lock the layout, auto align, so kind of like iOS, how it used to be, or it kind of is still like that, but like if you drag an app, it will automatically move apps to certain places to make it align. Then you have the show card bar, so to basically in editing mode, if an app has widgets, then it will give you the ability to expand it like this, and you can see that widget. So I mean, it's pretty cool. It gives you more customization. So if I take YouTube, and then let's just put this back to normal, tap and hold this, and then I can expand it and have kind of like an app widget, you know, a custom widget. So I got search, I got shorts, and subscriptions. So that's pretty cool. Google Discover, swipe down for notifications or swipe down for the honor search, and search button on the home screen. But yeah, on the Oppo Find N5, you can change it to have standard, so no app drawer, or with the app drawer, show suggested apps. If you swipe upward from the left or the right, then it will pull down notifications to make it easier to grab. So for example, boom, I can easily grab notifications at the top of the screen. So that's a really cool feature actually. But if you have the swipe inward to access your Google Assistant or your Gemini, then it can get in the way. So you got to do it like pretty precise, intentionally, for whichever one you want to do. But that's a really cool gesture. And then you have global search in the app drawer. So this is just to enable smarter searches and get better results. You can lock the layout, icon fills. So the same thing, like snapping them to a grid or something like that, keeping them aligned. Double tap to lock, swipe down for global search or notifications and quick settings. And then you have advanced material. So this is just like adding like advanced blur effects to notifications and quick settings and stuff like that, giving it like a more futuristic, cool aesthetic, I guess. You can also enhance the speed. So enhance will make you feel a little bit faster compared to the standard. So that's enhance, and then this is standard, so a little bit slower. Then you have search at the bottom, and you have some lock screen customizations here that we've seen before. That is like the bread and butter for these phones, you know, the home screen, the lock screen. These are the things you're going to see the most and interact with the most. So if I swipe down on the Fold 6, I have this layout that's kind of like Apple, where one side is notifications, the other side is the control center, and you can swipe over, of course. On the Honor Magic, you can only swipe at the top to switch. The Z Fold 6, you can swipe at the bottom or the top. I'm not sure if you can go back to how it was before on the Honor Magic, but on the Z Fold 6 and the Oppo Find N5, you can definitely go back. So panel settings, press together, and then boom. And then also on the Z Fold 6, I like to have show always my brightness control, and then also show the device control and media output when it's collapsed. So that just makes it look like this. So now whenever I swipe down for my notifications, I also have my brightness slider always, and then these quick controls and the media and device control as well. So that's something that I like. Oppo Find N5, you can also do the same thing to go back to how it was before. Yeah, I already have it set to the classic. So notifications, and then my quick toggles. Honor, I'm not sure how to do that, if you can. But in terms of the quick toggle menus, this is how they all look. So this is the Samsung One UI 7 quick toggle menu. You can move these things up and down to however you want. Some of them, you can't like take these things off though. Like these will always be here. So you just got to organize it in a way that is good for you. Due to how slim the Z Fold 6 is in terms of like the narrow aspect ratio, it's very easy to actually access this. So this layout is good for the Z Fold 6 in terms of that reachability. And then here you can edit like the specific quick toggles that you want, like your normal Android stuff. And then if you go here, you can edit the top quick toggles. So this is when it's expanded if you have the classic mode on. So right here, you can edit those ones. But yeah, that's how it looks on Samsung. On the Honor Magic V3, this is how theirs looks. You can expand it. You can also edit which quick toggles you have on. So now it's like this. And then you also, the top two, you can have them in this corner. But right now, at the moment, you cannot move these things around. This is just going to be the permanent layout for the quick toggle menu, and then you expand it like that. It's not bad, it's pretty clean, but I wish there was a bit more customization. Like Apple is more customizable in that sense than this phone. Usually it's Android phones that are more customizable, so you can't be losing to Apple here. And then on the Oppo Find N5, this is what it looks like when it's not expanded. Then when you expand it, it's just like a basic Android layout, kind of like very old school in terms of like all the quick toggles being at the bottom and stuff. Then you have these things at the top, basic controls. You can tap the arrow to expand it for the Wi-Fi. Tap and hold Bluetooth and Wi-Fi to go into it if you want. And yeah, basic. So to edit, you edit tiles, and you can add your quick toggles. You can choose which ones you want to be expanded at the top, so that's also kind of nice. But you can't really change like the layout of it. It's just going to be all the quick toggles at the bottom and then these at the top. But you can change the shape of them, the small tiles, so that is cool, I guess. A little bit more customization than the V3, but still very stuck with just one layout. All right, so now we're going to move on to basic navigation, and then from there we'll transition to multitasking. So in terms of navigation and gestures, they all have access to the basic Android gestures. So swipe and hold to go to your recent apps. And then you can back swipe from either side of the screen to get out of things or go back. Like for example, if you're in a browser, you can go back to the previous web page. And then they have access to the buttons that you can have at the bottom where it's home, back, and then your recent apps. But all three of these phones have access to different gestures and different ways to navigate your phone. So for example, on the Z Fold 6, you can swipe with 2 fingers from the bottom to enter into a split screen like this. Very easily. Choose any app from your recent apps, or you can go to any app on your phone like this, or you can search very quickly. Then you have a swipe from the top right to enter into a floating window, and you can resize the floating window very easily, any size you want. And this works with any app on this phone, and you can have up to 5 at a time. And then you can also take a screenshot by taking your hand like that and swiping across the screen. You can turn off the screen by covering it. And then you can also flip your phone to go into mute mode where all sounds and notifications will be muted. And then you have double tap to lock the screen, double tap to wake the screen. You have double tap the power button to enter into the camera. Then you can press and hold to power menu or your Google Assistant or whatever assistant you use. Then you also have one hand mode. This works on the inside screen as well. And you can move it back and forth and resize it to make it smaller and easier to use. You can use your whole phone screen with one finger, and then you can even do it on the inside like I mentioned. So swipe down and boom. Now you can use this whole tablet screen just like this. And you might think like, why? But it's actually kind of useful. If you're holding something else in your other hand, but you have the phone screen open, you can easily access your whole screen just by swiping down like that. So one hand mode is sick. And those are the basics for Samsung gestures. You can customize the button, for example. So when you double press or when you press and hold, you can do different things on the phone. Like basically anything really with good luck. So here in Register, you can customize your side press and hold action. So you can choose all these different functions. Like for example, take a screenshot, access your Google Voice, turn on and off the flashlight, auto rotate, whatever. Then you can also open any app on your phone. So you have so much customization when it comes to how you use your Samsung phone for sure. So what I mainly use is this screenshot basic. So I just press and hold the power button and it will take a screenshot. It takes a little bit of time, but it's easier than, doing a gesture or pressing 2 buttons at the same time. So I have that usually. And then in terms of like the navigation around the phone, there's a lot more like one hand operations and stuff like that. I'll get into that later on in the video when I cover the special features of each of these phones. But for now, these are the basic ways you can navigate your Z Fold 6. So now onto the Honor Magic. There's also a lot of gestures in this phone as well. If we go to accessibility features, you can see there's one hand mode. So just like on the Z Fold 6, you have access to one hand mode. So you slide your finger across and hold it, then it will make the screen smaller and easier to use with one hand. And then you can tap the outside area to go back big. And depending on which side you slide it will determine where it gets small. So it's the right side. And then if I do it on the left side, it will get small here. On the inside screen, you cannot do one hand mode. So this is something that Samsung offers that the other brands don't do. I've had people say, why would you need that on the big screen? But trust me, there's use cases. I'd rather have options than not have options. And then for other gestures, you have, so double press to launch the camera app. You can change it. So double press, launch the camera and take a photo, which is pretty cool. So let's test that out. That's pretty sick, to be honest. And then you have turn on your flashlight, launch the recorder, launch timer, launch calculator, or none. Then you can press Then you can program double tapping the down volume button as well for different things. You can have 2 of these double press things mapped on this phone, which is nice. So for example, flashlight, this only works when the screen is off. So for example, the flashlight, bomb, turn it off. So that's pretty cool. And you have some knock features. So for example, if I knock twice, it'll take a screenshot very quick. And then 3-finger swipe, I showed this earlier. It adds to the global favorites, but it also takes a screenshot if there's nothing that it can add. Like for example, in a browser, it will add the browser web page to the global favorites right here. But if there's no web page to copy like that, then it will add a screenshot. And you can also change this gesture if you want to just be a basic screenshot as well. Then you have screen record. So knock on the screen with 2 fingers and then it will start screen recording. That is really cool as well. Then the same double tap to wake, double tap to turn off. So turn it off and then wake. Just like on the Z Fold 6. Then you have race to wake on all of them as well. And then you have the magic portal. So if you have magic portal enabled, you can tap and hold the image, then drag it to the magic portal and quickly drop it into these apps. And you might think like, oh, you know, it's an extra step or whatever, but no, this is pretty useful because you quickly drop it to an app, then it will open the app in a floating window, which is also really nice, and then quickly place the photo in the app. So as you can see, I put it to the notes app and then it made a new note with this photo very quickly. Magic portal is pretty sick in that sense. You can flip to mute the phone or you can raise it to reduce the volume. So if you raise it, the ring and volume will go down. Then you can also, this is a feature I really like. Samsung should add this for sure. But answer calls by raising the phone to your ear. So if I just raise the phone up to my ear, the phone will detect that I'm raising it and then answer the call. I like that feature. And then there's other gestures. So there's something called air gestures, where you can basically have your hand about 20 to 40 centimeters from the screen until you see this icon. And then you can do different things like grab a screenshot like that. Or you can have your hand down to swipe up, or have your hand like this to swipe down. So it's pretty cool actually, and it works. If I'm in YouTube, I can scroll like this pretty seamlessly, pretty easy. It actually works really well. Grab a screenshot. And if I go to Google Chrome, same thing. You put your hand till you see the icon, then you just swipe. And if you want to go up, you wait till you see the hand icon like this, then you swipe. So air gestures are pretty cool and they work well on this device. Alright, moving on to the Oppo Find 5. Again, basic Android navigation and gestures, but it also has some unique gestures. So you can swipe down with 3 fingers to take a screenshot. If you tap with 3 fingers and hold, then you can do a select and screenshot where you can select a specific area of the screen that you want to screenshot very quickly. And you can also mark it up, so that's pretty cool. Then if you want to do a split screen, you can swipe with 3 fingers up and then choose any app on your home screen or in your app drawer. And then boom, you're in a quick split screen session. We'll get to this later on, but you can expand the app to have 2 full screen apps on the outer display, which I think is pretty cool. It's basically like a mini open canvas on your exterior screen. The open canvas is when you have this phone open and 3 apps open at the same time. So this is open canvas, 3 apps open at the same time. And you can zoom out to see them. We'll get back to that later. So the Oppo Find 5 also has air scroll, but on this phone it only works in specific apps. So you see popular social media apps, it only works in those. So I'm in YouTube. Now my hand is like this. I can flick to scroll. It works, but I feel like the Honor does it a little bit better. You can only scroll up and down to specific apps. And then it also works for answering calls. So the same thing. Have your hand like this, then you swipe up when there's a call and it will answer. And then the other way to mute the call. But yeah, it's really just answering and muting calls and then scrolling on certain apps. So the Honor's version is better for sure. Then you have raise to wake, lift to air to answer the call. Auto switch receiver. So let's say you answer in speaker mode. If you raise it to your ear, it will automatically switch. So that's pretty cool as well. And then flip to mute incoming calls as well on this phone. You also have something called screen off gestures. So if I lock the phone screen and then draw different shapes, so a circle, I'll launch the camera app. If I draw a V, it will turn on the flashlight. Then there's other ones too to control the music. So if with 2 fingers doing these shapes, then it will play a song or pause the song or skip the song. And then at the bottom, you have 3 gestures that you can customize. So upside down V, a M, and a W. You can set basically to open any app, unlock the phone, or call somebody. Pretty good customization for these gestures. If you're in an app that supports multitasking, if you swipe and hold to the right or the left, you can also do split screen and folding windows just like on the Honor Magic as well. And that is basic navigation on this phone right here, the Oppo Find N5. Alright, so now we're going to get into multitasking. So I already showed you, but you can 2-finger swipe from the bottom on the Z Fold 6 to enter to a split screen session. And how split screen works on the Z Fold devices is you have many different increments of adjustment for your split screen session and layout. So you can go all the way up here with one being small, and then you can bring it all the way down the other side. You have this bar that tells you what app has the focus. So right now it's on this one, but if I tap the bottom app, then you'll see that it switches. And if you tap that, you have different options like opening a different app, or you can make it a floating window, expand it or close it. And you can also do those things by grabbing that bar and dragging it as well and open it into a floating window. You could also drag to the top and then boom, it will go into a full window, full screen. This is something that Samsung does better than other Android devices. But if you have your device in landscape and then you 2-finger swipe, you can enter into a split screen from either side. So if I swipe from here, then split screen will start here. If I swipe from this side, split screen will start this side. I think that's pretty cool because it allows you to get into the session exactly how you want it. Another thing that's mostly unique to Samsung phones is that you can adjust the split screen session to many different sizes, even while being in landscape and on the outside screen. On other devices, as you'll see when I get to these two, you cannot do that. When you're in landscape, you only have one size option. Usually it's just a 50-50 split between the apps on most other Android phones. But on Samsung devices, you can go all the way here and you can go all the way here. So it's very flexible, very easy to use. And then if we take it to the inside, on a Samsung Foldable, you can have up to 3 apps in split screen. So if I bring up the taskbar, grab a third app, and boom, now I have 3 instances of Google Chrome in split screen. And you might think like, oh, this is not that useful, but there's so many different use cases for a triple split screen session like this that makes it a very enjoyable experience and just very customizable for different workflows. You can do many different things. You can resize it to many different sizes as well. And then you can rotate the phone and have many different layouts for split screen sessions on the inside screen. And then on top of 3 apps, you can also open up 5 apps in floating windows. So if I grab more Google Chrome, grab that, grab this. So I can have up to 5 apps in floating windows in addition to 3 on the screen already. And that is basically 8 apps on the screen at one time on the Z Fold 6. And it works flawlessly. There's no stuttering. There's no issues. It just works well. And you can resize everything to how you want it. Like I said, very flexible multitasking system. And you can take this even further by plugging your Samsung phone into an external screen, which we'll get into after this. On the Honor Magic V3, you have your basic split screen. So if you go like this, then boom, now you can choose an app. So let's choose Google Chrome. So you can adjust the split screen session, but it doesn't have as many increments as the Z Fold 6. There's only really like 2 different sizes. And then you have the same thing where it shows you which app is in focus. If you tap that, you can open into a floating window. You can also full screen it. And then if you rotate the phone, like I said earlier, you cannot adjust your split screen size when you're in landscape orientation for most phones. So that is unfortunate, and that is something that Samsung does better than others. And then in terms of the floating windows, like I showed earlier, you only have access to 1 floating window at a time on this phone. So if I open up gallery, then I open up notes, only 1 at a time, but you do have this menu where you can swap between them. And if you open up 3 or more, then you can choose them like this. So it's not bad, definitely works. And you can resize them, but they stay in the same aspect ratio. Also toss them off to the side like on Samsung, and then choose which one you want to open up. So it's kind of like a little bit more organized compared to what Samsung has, but Samsung gives you the most flexibility in my opinion. So I think multitasking is good on all these devices. But if you take it to the inside screen, on this phone, unfortunately, you can only have 2 apps in split screen at a time. Then you can have 2 floating windows. So up to 4 apps at a time open, which is, more than enough for most people. And it gets the job done. Like I could use this and be happy with it for sure. On the inside, you still only have like 2 size options for adjustment. And then you can obviously rotate it for different options. One thing I forgot to mention on the Samsung is that swipe gesture, it also works on the inside screen. If I swipe from this side, then I can open a split screen on this side. But then if I swipe from the left side, then I can open a split screen on the left side. So that is really nice for, like I said, intentionally entering to a split screen session in the way that you want to. From the bottom, it works as well. And then both of these devices have the ability to have app pairs saved on your phone. You can save it on the Z Fold 6. You can save it to your edge panel and the home screen or your taskbar. On the Honor Magic V3, you can't save the same app as the app pair. On Samsung's device, you can do that. But if I grab another app, save app pair, then it's just added to the home screen. So that's the only place you can add it to. Now on the Oppo Find N5, I showed a little bit earlier as well, but if you open the app, then you go like this, 3-finger swipe, you can enter into a split screen very easily. You only have about 2 adjustments for the size of the split screen session. And then you have the expanded mode, which is really nice. So about 3 options, and you can expand both of them to have 2 full screen apps, even on the outer display. I think that's really cool. In terms of the floating windows, you have basically like an edge panel, and then you can open them in quick floating windows. And then if you open more than 2 apps, more than 3 apps, you will basically cycle through them. And then you can kind of swipe it to choose which app you want. So pretty decent system, and it works very fast and smooth. Then you open up to the inside screen. Now you have 2 apps split screen. And so Open Canvas, the way it works is that you can have different modes. So for example, I can release it to shrink. If I go to this app, I can also shrink it. And then boom, now I have like a normal split screen session. If I rotate the phone, again, pretty normal split screen session. I can do a top and bottom split as well. And then floating windows, I can only have 1 open at a time. The adjustment increments, you only have really either shrunken or expanded. And that's why I feel like Open Canvas, although it is great and works well, it is very limited in the fact that you can't really resize the apps to how you want them. Exactly how you want them. Some people are fine with it in the way it is, and that's fine. But for me, I wish there was more options. So if I open another app in split screen, so now I have 3 apps open at the same time, but it's Open Canvas, so it will jump back and forth between them. Then you can adjust the sizes. So let's say I expand this one. Then I'm going to expand this. I think this is probably like the best use case for Open Canvas. To have 3 foldable phone full screen apps at a time running is really cool. And you can just quickly bounce back and forth between them. It is nice. It also might make you feel sick if you have motion sickness or something like that. And you can zoom out to see all 3 apps at the same time. Zoom back in, and you can kind of like adjust them. But there's not really too many options for the layout. Like there's not too many options with it. Like you can put the big app at the bottom of them sometimes. If I rotate the phone. If I bring this right here. Yeah, there's not really too many options with the way you can lay out the apps. So although it is cool, it is kind of limited in my opinion. But yeah, that's how Open Canvas works basically. And if you tap the dots, you can switch the app. You can shrink it. You can enter to a floating window or full screen the app. Alright, so earlier I mentioned that you can take multitasking even further on the Z Fold device by connecting it to an external screen. Right now I have a lap dock device and I can connect different devices to it. So I'll connect the Z Fold 6 with the USB-C cable. So just prop it up and then boom, you have Samsung DeX. So Samsung DeX is basically a desktop interface. It takes your phone and turns into this and allows you to open many floating windows and just use your phone like you would with a computer. So for example, if I click the settings app, it opens up in this window. I can take this window and move it around, snap it to the side for a quick split screen, just like on Windows or Mac OS. And then you have your taskbar, so you can pin different apps to the taskbar. You have your calendar, your battery, your quick toggles in your taskbar, your notifications. You can see your recent apps at the bottom left, and then you also have a search. You can search for files and apps on your phone. So let's say photo or something like that. It will show you different search options, and then you can go to your app drawer to see all your apps on your phone as well and add them to your home screen. So Samsung DeX is a separate home screen that you can change the wallpaper and add apps and folders to it as well. Even with the Files app, you can have multiple instances of it, just like how you can on the built-in display as well, and drag files back and forth between, different folders, let's say on your phone. So you can literally use your Samsung device as a computer. I do that and have done that for many years now. It's just an amazing feature. And then one cool thing about Samsung DeX is that you can set it so that the mouse cursor can go back and forth between your Samsung phone screen and the other screen that you're using. So essentially you have 2 screens, especially with the Z Fold 6 and how big this screen is compared to a normal smartphone. You can literally use the Z Fold 6 as a mini tablet, a secondary screen for lesser important things. Like for example, a chat that you have with people or a YouTube video or something like that. Or you can even have triple split screen on the Z Fold 6 screen while you're working on the external screen, Samsung DeX. And it's all the files from your phone. So it's just a really cool work solution, portable work solution. And this thing has a built-in battery and you can take it wherever you want. It has the form factor of a laptop, but it's being powered by your Samsung device. So multitasking to another level. You can have up to 8 apps on the built-in screen at the same time as many more apps on the Samsung DeX screen. Really, really cool. Let's go to the Honor Magic V3 that has desktop mode as well. So I'm just going to prop up the V3. So you have multiple projection modes. There's phone mode where it kind of like stretches the screen, which is really nice for external display support. But then you can also have desktop mode. So I'm going to switch to desktop mode right now. And boom. So automatically the phone becomes a trackpad. The Samsung also can do this as well. One thing I like about Honor Magic's desktop mode is that you have a drawing mode. So you can literally draw on the screen as if you're presenting something and then erase it. You also can screen record while you're in desktop mode, which is something that Samsung devices cannot do right now, or at least to my knowledge. Just cool functionality here, but it's basically the same as Samsung's desktop mode in the sense of you can open apps and they will open up in floating windows, and then you can drag them to different sides of the screen to quickly shape them for split screen sessions. Samsung is a little bit more polished in terms of the animations, but they work pretty much the same, and honestly is good enough for most people, for me, and I can use both of these phones to get real work done. Just a little bit walking around, you have the time and the calendar shortcut right here at the bottom right. And then you also have your quick toggles and a notification center. Then you have a shortcut for notes. And you can also, just like the Samsung, use your Honor Magic V3 while you're in desktop mode as well. So built-in screen, it allows you to have essentially 2 displays coming from one device. The mouse is moving a little bit strange though, so I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe it's the orientation of the device. Yeah, the orientation of the device was impacting it. So again, that's an example of how polished Samsung's is versus this Honor Magic V3. But yeah, it seems like it's working now that I rotated it back. And just like I was saying with the Samsung, you can have multitasking going on your built-in screen while doing other things on the external screen. So really cool functionality, really cool multitasking capabilities from both these phones. And now let's go to the Oppo to see what it has. So put it into flex mode, I guess. And then I'm going to plug in the USB-C cable, and then something pops up and says, do you want to cast to the screen? And boom. So unfortunately, the Oppo Find N5 only has the ability to mirror the screen. It doesn't even have the ability to stretch the display on the external screen. You just mirror it. So that's pretty unfortunate. The Samsung will also mirror if you turn off Samsung DeX. But then when you connect wirelessly, you have many more options, like adjusting the way it's casting out to the external screen to make it fit the whole screen. And then you also have the ability to only show certain apps on the external screen while still using your phone. So this works well. Like, for example, if I'm presenting something, but then I need to respond to a text, I can have only that presentation app on the external screen while responding to the text on the built-in screen with the Z Fold 6 wirelessly. So that's pretty cool. But so far, the Honor is doing the best when it comes to non-desktop mode, external screen with the cable. But yeah, the Oppo Find N5 can only do mirror screen, and that's about it. So you only get the square aspect ratio on the external screen, which is unfortunate, because imagine something like open canvas or something like that. At least just full screen would be nice. And boom, 3 full screen apps on open canvas on the external screen. To be honest, it's not terrible on, this is like a 13-inch screen, so it's not terrible on this screen size. And it's actually pretty usable for getting work done. If you wanted to use a keyboard and a mouse to get real work done, you could do that on the screen. With open canvas, it's really not bad at all. But again, I just wish it was taking up the whole screen and, you know, giving me a desktop mode. I think all 3 of these phones are good for mobile productivity and multitasking, but they all have different strengths, with the Z Fold 6 being the most flexible in my opinion. And then the Honor Magic V3 is right behind it. So yeah, that was basically it for this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think about these phones. I'm going to make more videos where I compare the cameras and performance. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss those videos, because it's going to be good. But until the next video, we're out. Peace.